it's Taylor Brough. This is part 3 of 3. This is the last one on political economy and Marxism. And in this one, we're going to focus on how to deploy the CapK, the Critique of Capitalism, in debates. So there are a ton of different philosophies of capitalism. In the previous 2 lectures, I tried to just kind of give like a bare bones architecture for what kinds of terms you're likely to encounter as you do more research. So I just want to preface this video by saying it's not completely comprehensive about everything about capitalism, because that would be really super hard to do. But what I am going to focus on is kind of like, how would you translate this theoretical infrastructure into a debate form and hopefully win some rounds doing it. So the first thing to kind of talk about is, in general, right, what the architecture of the Critique of Capitalism is. Of course, it says that capitalism is bad. There are a variety of different impacts that you can read that substantiate why capitalism is bad. You can, of course, say that it's bad for reasons of labor exploitation. You can say that it's bad because it requires constant growth and that's environmentally unsustainable. There's that Robinson card that gives kind of a laundry list of impacts to capitalism. You can say it's bad because of scarcity, right? Because it literally is a system that produces scarcity by financializing the things that people need in order to survive. So it intentionally makes resources scarce. But often when you're debating, you will really have to sit down on why capitalism is bad. Because when people read capitalism is good, you have to have offensive answers so that you can win the impact turn debate. So that's crucial. You have to say capitalism is bad, it's terrible. Here are 50 reasons why. You have to be able to answer their impact turns. So that's the first piece, right? Sort of self-explanatory, but tons of debaters don't even do this step. And it makes it really easy to vote for the other team in those debates because they aren't really sitting down and saying why capitalism is terrible. The second thing that you obviously need is a reason why, or several reasons, I hope, why the AF perpetuates capitalism. I like to think about link arguments in 3 different directions, okay? The first one is very self-explanatory, a link to plan action. So the action of whatever you're debating is capitalist because. Sort of an easy way to think about it. A different way to think about it would be the action of the plan, produces resource scarcity because, which feeds a capitalist project. If you're not debating a plan, right? If you're debating, something on the critique side, like Foucault's care of the self produces capitalism because it invests in neoliberal self-management, which makes people try to be better workers. I'm just giving random examples, but there's a ton of different examples. So you really want to link to what the action of the argument that you're debating is advocating in favor of. Because if you don't have a link to the plan that you're debating or to the method, then, it might be unclear, right, how the argument that you're debating does in fact perpetuate capitalism. So that's the first category of links to the action that the affirmative takes. The second one is like links to certain representations. And these are the kinds of links, I also call them like epistemology links. Like how does that argument know what it knows? What is its internal set of logics? Like how does it arrive at its conclusions? And when you're thinking about stuff like that, that's a place where you can kind of look in the evidence that they're reading or in how they've constructed their argument and start to poke holes in it. And ideally, you don't just want to say, oh, like your own internal logic is flawed because this doesn't really result in this. But instead, you want to say, your own internal logic is flawed because it relies on the same logic of capitalism. So like this could be true for arguments that label certain sectors of society resources, for example, right? And you could say, well, the tendency to objectify, you know, whatever thing in society is the logic of capitalism, the logic of primitive accumulation, and it results in all of these bad things. The third category of link is structural links. And so this is where the thing that I hinted at in video 2 comes in. Structural links with the capitalism critique can be things like, you know, well, you're trying to prevent global warming, but you don't have an analysis of how capitalism causes global warming. And so therefore the steps that you take to stave off that really bad impact are actually just capitalism trying to save itself, like I mentioned before with like green tech and things like that. So those are the three categories of links. You want to have a diversity of link arguments so that you can really operationalize this argument well. You want your link arguments to have clear internal links to the impacts that you want to go for. And what you really want is for those link arguments to be doing different things. That's why I made them into categories of 3. Like you don't want to just read a Cap K and then be like, your AF excludes people who are in poverty, because that's not as persuasive of a link argument when faced with something like a permutation. So instead, you really want to have a diversity of different link arguments that you can go for to kind of evade and cut short that issue. The third thing that all critiques need, that the Cap K certainly needs, is an alternative. And with the Cap K, there are a whole bunch of different kinds of alternatives that you can think about. There are alternatives like boring politics, you know, that says that we should work for reforms in the state so that we can have more regulated capitalism and that will resolve the problem. There are, of course, like Leninist criticisms, Maoist criticisms that say that we should have violent revolutions that overthrow the existing capitalist structure and replace it with communism, different theories of how to get to communism, etc. So I'll leave you to do the reading on that, but you really want a robust alternative that solves your link arguments and therefore provides uniqueness for your link arguments and will allow you to operationalize the K to your fullest potential. So best of luck. That concludes the 3-part series on political economy and Marxism.